Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're diving into some of the most jaw-dropping landscapes on the planet, glaciated uplands. These places, carved out by ancient ice, have some pretty amazing stories to tell about our world and, how we live in it right now. So, let's jump right in.
All right, to kick things off, I've got a fun one for you. What on earth could possibly connect the magical world of Harry Potter with, gigantic, ancient glaciers? I know, it sounds a bit out there, right? But believe it or not, the answer is hiding in plain sight, right in the scenery. It's the landscape. You know that amazing shot of the Hogwarts Express chugging across the Glenfinnan Viaduct? Well, that whole epic backdrop? That's the Scottish Highlands, and it was literally sculpted by glaciers thousands of years ago. It's a perfect example of how these incredible forces from the past are still shaping our world today.
But these places are way more than just pretty movie sets. They're living, breathing, working landscapes. And for the people who call them home, they're a mix of huge challenges and at the same time, some really amazing opportunities.
And this is where it gets really interesting. You've got this core paradox, right? The very thing that makes them so beautiful, these steep, rugged slopes, also means the soil is super thin and poor. So living there, farming there, it's tough. But that same glacial power scraped away the earth, uncovering valuable stuff underneath and creating the very scenery that now brings in millions of visitors.
So the big question is, how do you make a living in a place like this? Well, over hundreds of years, people have gotten really smart about it. They've figured out how to tap into the unique strengths of these upland areas, creating a whole economy that's unlike anywhere else.
And it really boils down to four main things. You've got farming, but it's probably not what you're thinking of. Then there's forestry, quarrying, so digging valuable rock out of the ground, and of course, the big one, tourism.
Okay, let's start with farming. Trying to grow crops like wheat or potatoes on these hillsides? Yeah, good luck with that. It's just not going to happen. But it's absolutely perfect for grazing animals. Sheep are the classic example. They're practically made for this kind of rough terrain. We're also seeing more cattle and even deer farming, which is why venison is becoming a really important local product.
All right, next up, forestry. And it's a similar story, really. Just like some animals are built for the uplands, so are certain trees. You're not going to find lush oak forests here. Instead, you get tough coniferous trees, like spruce and pine. They actually do great in the cooler, wetter climate and poor soil. And these forests are a huge deal, providing timber for building, for paper, you name it.
Remember how I said the glaciers scrape the land? Well, think of them as these massive, natural bulldozers. They just scraped away all the soft topsoil and exposed the hard, valuable rock underneath. And that kicked off a huge quarrying industry. We're talking about things like slate from the Lake District for roofs, limestone from the Pennines, and that super tough granite from the Scottish Highlands. All essential stuff for building our towns and cities.
And that brings us to the absolute giant of the upland economy, tourism. Honestly, you can't overstate how important this is. People flock to these places for that raw, natural beauty that the glaciers left behind. The epic mountain peaks, those deep, sweeping valleys, and the gorgeous lakes.
And when I say people flock there, I mean it. The numbers are just mind-boggling. A place like the Lake District gets millions of visitors every single year. And think about what that means. All those people need places to stay, places to eat, gear to buy. They support this whole ecosystem of businesses. The landscape itself has literally become the most valuable thing they have.
Okay, but here's the catch. When you have millions of people and all these different industries all trying to use the same space, well, things can get a little tense. Conflicts are pretty much inevitable. You have different groups, we call them stakeholders, who all want to use the land for completely different reasons.
Let me give you a classic example. Imagine you're a hiker. You've gone to a national park for some peace and quiet, right? To get away from it all. But that exact same remote, wide-open, mountainous terrain is also the perfect place for the military to practice flying jets really low and fast. So suddenly, your peaceful hike is interrupted by the roar of an engine. It's a direct clash, the tourists' need for quiet versus the military's need for training.
Here's another one that can get really heated, hunting. Things like grouse shooting or deer stalking. On one hand, the largest states that manage this say, hey, this brings in a ton of money and creates jobs in areas that really need them. But on the other hand, you have lots of people, conservationists and the public, who say it's just wrong on an ethical level. They believe wildlife should be protected, not hunted for sport. So it's this real clash between tradition, economics, and modern values.
So with all these different groups wanting different things, how in the world do you manage it all? That's the million-dollar question. The goal is to find that sweet spot, that balance, where people can make a living without, wrecking the very thing that makes the place so special to begin with.
A really important idea here is something called carrying capacity. It's actually a pretty simple concept. Just think of it like a party. There's a maximum number of people you can have in your house before things start getting broken. It's the same for nature. There's a limit to how many visitors an area can handle before the environment, the footpaths, the plants, starts to get seriously damaged.
So, how do they manage that capacity? Well, park authorities have a whole toolbox of strategies. They're constantly keeping an eye on how many people are visiting. They build and maintain really good footpaths to keep everyone on one track and stop the ground from getting worn away everywhere. And yeah, sometimes they have to make the tough call to temporarily close a super popular spot just to give the land a chance to breathe and recover. It's a full-time job, really, protecting these places from being loved to death.
And all of this brings us to one final, really big question. These incredible landscapes, born from ice, are now facing all kinds of new pressures. More visitors than ever, a changing climate, the list goes on. So the question for all of us is, can we keep this delicate balance going? Can we protect these places while still enjoying them? Because how we answer that is going to decide what these places look like for generations to come.